1 week season.
1 week season, fam, La Familia. Welcome to Wake and Snake. This is Mike Johnson, M Johnson 86, as I am known in the DFS and Bestball streets. You can see here I'm already drafting. I'm in the second round, just taking Devonte Adams here. For those of you just joining, every week we go through on Monday, our part of our Bestball Plus product. We used to do a market news and market news report, just different things that were happening, changes in ADP and whatnot. But doing it this year on our as a live stream on our YouTube and Twitter as well. That way we can kind of go through things and talk about it in a little bit more of a live scenario. So couple technical difficulties today. First of all, I'm coming to you solo. My esteemed colleague Stat ATL or Billy is unavailable. We are doing this recording a little bit later in the day on Monday, June 10th. So this week he will not be joining us. It will just be me. So you'll have to listen to me for a while. I started the recording and then there's nobody here to tell me when I'm doing something stupid. So I started the recording at the start of this draft that you're watching, and the recording was on mute. So did not have anything to share with you, and I didn't think you would just want to watch my face for those first 3 minutes. So restarted the recording. Here we are. We are 3 rounds in. This week, today, I sent out a message in our Discord just asking members just about as things are slowing down a little bit here in this second week of June. There's not that much going on with transactions and that sort of thing. So, an ADP movement kind of tends to level off without much in terms of news. So, with that being the case, decided to throw it to the people what situations they want to talk about. So one of them, I took Devonte Adams with my second round pick here, and one of the questions was just about the Raiders offense, and I think that I believe Hilo in one of his training sessions last week, he discussed a basically the situation with team scoring and how important team scoring is, um, and how it correlates to production. One thing I want to keep in mind too is obviously across any site, team scoring touchdowns are a huge deal. But that being said, it's a bigger deal on underdog than it is on the other two sites, DraftKings and Drafters, because there's only half point PPR on underdog. So yardage and touchdowns are going to carry a lot more weight there. So the things he talked about last week in regards to uh, total team points, definitely more relevant there. I believe the Raiders, I believe it's from Mike Clay at ESPN. His projections. There's a graphic basically with team scoring projections for the season, and the Raiders are 30th on that, expected for only 310 points. Um, Obviously, that's not very good, being 30th out of 32 teams. But it will be an interesting situation to see how that plays out. And the thing you need to keep in mind is that those projections for over the course of a season can be so fragile, just because, uh, as we know, with the name of our site, 1 week season, each week, each game script can kind of have a life of its own. And over the course of many weeks, you can kind of see that level off, and you can see just a few spike weeks kind of change things. And you can also see, things like defensive injuries or coaching changes, quarterback change that may change the outlook for a specific team. So, with that said, I am back on the board here, gonna make Hilo happy and take Trey McBride as well. So the uh, the Raiders, their offense, it really is a matter of what we think. If we think that the Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew um, quarterback tandem, if it can be carried by what is really a pretty good offensive cast. You have Devontae Adams, who we know is just an elite All Pro. Jacoby Myers, their number two receiver, kind of perennially underrated. And then they have two high profile. They drafted Brock Bowers out of Georgia in the first round of this year's draft, and they took Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame in the second round of last year's draft. So, the top, the basically the top tight end prospect in each of the last two drafts they have, along with two very good receivers. Zamir White performed well at the end of last year. I would say their running back room is kind of their weakness. Just relative to the rest of the roster, their running backs and quarterback. But we talk about it. You've heard it if you've been around fantasy for very long at all. You've heard talk of the running backs don't matter and all that discourse that's gone on over the years. And running backs do matter to a certain extent, but the that's that being your weakest spot, you can overcome relatively easily. So they've also got Trey Tucker, who kind of an explosive, like gadgety third receiver. They also signed Michael Gallup from the Cowboys, who in the past has been good, was plagued by injuries last season. But they've got a lot of weapons there. So they're a team that a lot of projection systems for them for the season kind of have them really low, because it's hard to. And we also have a small sample size, right? Of Antonio Pierce took over as the head coach last season, came in there and was extremely run heavy. Really, really wanted to pound the ball, just running at a very high rate. So that is weighing so heavily on these projection systems, I think, and kind of forcing the issue on uh, these. It's kind of projections push into rankings push into ADP, and it kind of is a self-fulfilling type thing. So, uh, you know, keep that in mind when you see like the Raiders, you see Jacoby Myers, you see Brock Bowers, where they are being drafted, where their ADPs are. That's under an assumption that that this offense is going to score something similar to what they are showing in these projections. So, if things go the other way and Gardner Minshew, who we've seen be more than serviceable in multiple stops throughout his career, if he comes out and is able to make them serviceable, he almost took the Colts to the playoffs last year. Or Aiden O'Connell makes a jump in his second year. He did some nice things. It wouldn't be shocking to see them kind of overperform expectations. So that will be one that is interesting to see. And looks like I'm about to come back up here. And so far I've got four wide receivers, one tight end on this roster. Gonna make a pick here. I'm gonna take Rome Odunze, the rookie for the Bears. So again, just kind of trying to lead myself into some of these discussion points other teams brought up. Pete G from our Discord asked about the Bears offense, and they're one that's, I find, again, as we see when we go throughout the season, or the draft season, I should say, there's so much hype kind of around the Bears. Caleb Williams, they drafted at number 1 overall. They have also drafted Odunze at number 9 overall. They had brought in Keenan Allen. Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, came over from the Seahawks. So, and he had a much higher pass rate with Seattle than what the Bears had last year with Justin Fields as their quarterback. So, just a lot of excitement around them. And it's kind of quelled down. I've seen Caleb Williams dropping quite a bit in drafts recently, which is really something that uh, is kind of surprising to see, uh, considering the hype that he has and the weapons that he has around him. I've seen him dropping to the late ninth or 10th round. I think I just got him at pick like 122 in a draft on drafters. So I'm going to take DeAndre Swift here, pair him up with Odunze, two Bears on that, potentially explosive offense. So, we have the Bears are, and I'll dig in a little bit more on the Bears. So I did my one call away uh, article last week. It is for Best Ball Plus subscribers. It is up in the scroll. You can check that out if you haven't already. But the idea is players who potentially could see their values rise, which closing line value is something that you'll hear talked about across the industry. And the idea is basically similar to betting on a game. If you were to bet on I don't know, the Packers to beat the Vikings as 3-point favorites on Tuesday of a week, and then they play on Sunday, and by the time that the line closes, they're 7-point favorites. Well, you had 4 points of closing line value. You got a better line than what the market would have given you later. So the idea for best ball is basically players who could see drastic increases in their value between now and when the season starts. Obviously, you can make that case for any player. If any starting running back tears his ACL training this week, that the backup is instantly going to jump in value. But the idea of the article is, who are some players who, without an injury that doesn't already exist or news around that injury, who are players that could see a spike in value. And one of the players I talked about was Rashawn Johnson, the second-year running back for the Bears. So you look at Johnson, you look at the Bears backfield. So last year they had Deontay Foreman, they had Khalil Herbert, and they had Rashawn Johnson. So Foreman left. They brought in DeAndre Swift. So now what does that backfield look like? Well, you have a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. You have surrounded him with elite receiving core. You have brought in an offensive coordinator that you're going to probably want to throw, that is going for the purpose of that rookie quarterback being able to throw more. So you now have Swift as well. Now Swift is the interesting part. So he is being drafted. I believe I got him here in the 7th round. Let me double check that. Yeah, so I got him with the 4th pick of the 7th round. Now Swift is a player who, if you look at the history of him, he has been kind of all over the map. Last year with Philly, he had his 1 year there, but they don't throw the ball to their running backs that much. And Jalen Hurts with the tush push takes up so much of the rushing production. So with him, you look at his past prior to that. Well, he was in Detroit. Well, just a couple of years ago, he was a like 2nd round pick when he was with the Lions. And in that role, he was basically a timeshare back. And he has, in interviews this offseason, talked about that's where he's going to fit in, is as he's most effective being used in the passing game, being used in space, being spelled by another running back of some sort. So with that in mind, it is hard to uh, not be excited for Rashawn Johnson, which is why he made it to the article. My comparison there is If you look at this Bears offense, similar to the Lions offense of the past, where last year they had David Montgomery as kind of their base down back, and then Jameer Gibbs still plenty involved. And then 2 years ago, it was Swift himself in the role that he could now play for the Bears. And Jamal Williams led the league in touchdowns. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to end up exactly like that. But when you think about it from the standpoint of um, number one, if that plays out to be true for Rashawn, we'll find that out in August. So as soon as things start playing out with the uh, as soon as things start playing out for them, their preseason, uh, reports out of camp, and then their first couple preseason games, we'll get a feel for what that's going to look like. Now, the reason that I think it'll be Johnson over Khalil Herbert is Khalil Herbert has been horrendous in pass protection. So, just from the standpoint of what is this going to look like for the Bears coaching staff, how are they going to make that decision? Well, to me, it seems like something that would be most likely to go to for that job next to Swift would be a player who is better in pass protection. And that would be Johnson. So that's kind of a long way of saying I'm very excited for the Bears and Swift. Like I said, he was being drafted as a second rounder 2 years ago in what is probably going to be pretty similar, the 2022 Lions to the 2024 Bears in terms of maybe not like a fully elite offense, but certainly an average to above average offense. So he was being drafted as a second round pick then, and now we can get him as a seventh, sometimes an eighth round pick. Very bullish on the Bears offense for me. Worked that Bulls reference for the Chicago team in there nicely. So, so we've touched on the Bears, we've touched on the Raiders, and also had some questions about the Jaguars. So, who do we have? Who was it that asked? Want to give proper credit. So lead right on our Discord said the Jaguars. Everyone was high on them last year. There's been lots of turnover in the wide receiver room, but still the same offensive system. And generally, I really do agree from the standpoint of like the from the standpoint of the uh, they lost Calvin Ridley, but Calvin Ridley, while he's a very good receiver, he isn't an alpha difference maker, like changing your offense. They also lost Zay Jones, but they have Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas, the first round rookie, who's very, very good. He brings a dynamic of making plays after the catch, just a different level of athleticism. And then we know Gabe Davis from the Bills can be very up and down. He can disappear, but he can have some monster weeks. So really, I think what it does is it should put a little bit of solid focus on Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, likely to carry the load. But this is also a situation, and I think that Lead Right did a great job of talking about it. I just did add Caleb Williams there to my DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze Bears lineup. But for the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, speak of the devil, just went off the board at pick 10, 11. So the Jaguars they're a team that everybody wanted to be on, and they probably were steamed higher than they should have been last season, coming off of kind of a surprising playoff run. They had that exciting upset over the Chargers in the first round of the playoffs 2 years ago. So coming off of that, Trevor Lawrence, had a great season, former number one pick, a lot of excitement there. So what do? Well, uh, they go right ahead and uh, and have kind of a disappointing season. The Texans become the belle of the ball in the AFC South. The Colts almost made the playoffs as well. Jaguars really had a disappointing end to the season, losing kind of a must-win game and kind of choking away the playoffs, if we're being completely honest. So, with when you look at a team like that, uh, sentiment kind of drives things. And talked about projections a little bit earlier. The Jaguars underperforming last season is driving down their projections for this season, which in turn is making them just cheaper across the board in drafts. So uh, they're a team that I wouldn't be surprised to see kind of bounce back to what we expected coming into last year. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Texans kind of similar to what the Jaguars did last year, uh, kind of take a step, like a lateral step. They just kind of came out of nowhere and made such a big jump up. They won the division, but now they're going to have a tougher schedule as a result. Uh, and then the Titans and Colts. I think the AFC South could actually be pretty fun. You've got between Stroud, Lawrence, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis. You've got some young, exciting quarterbacks in that division. So that's one I'm really interested to see where it goes. But for the question about the Jaguars, yeah, I think there's an advantage, and I talk about this a lot in DFS, especially early in the season. Sometimes there's just an advantage in continuity, in maintaining the status quo, and same quarterback, same head coach there, despite the disappointing season last year. I wouldn't be shocked if they just get back to work and take a big step forward, kind of back to where we expected them last year. Um, and now I am getting ready to come back on the clock. While I was talking, my running back room right now, I have DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren, Raheem Mostert are my three running backs. Mostert for the Dolphins, of course, Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Currently sitting with six wide receivers. I also took Jahan Dotson, paired him with Terry McLaurin, so I have both of these starting wide receivers for the Commanders. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and take Jalen Wright, the rookie running back for the Dolphins. Pair him up with Mostert. So I have two running backs for the Dolphins. Obviously, Devon Achane, the second year running back, very explosive out of or for the Dolphins. Had a big year last year. Everybody remembers that monster game he had against the Broncos. So Ed, kind of a bet against him here on this roster with Mostert and Wright. Achane has not been a poster boy of durability, so we'll take a chance here and kind of make a bet that Achane misses some time, and I've got the guys who benefit from it. Also going to take Marshawn Lloyd for the Packers and get into. So we've talked about the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Bears primarily today. Also want to get into this. Where did he go? So J.K. Dobbins just went off the board at the 5th pick of the 13th round, and we had Nick Chubb went pretty early actually here. He went with the first pick of the 10th round. So that would be pick number 109. And if I look through here, where are you at, Nick? Yeah, he's got an average draft position on DraftKings of 114.5. So also had a question about the Browns and no Chubb, possibly no Nick Chubb to start the season. Deshaun Watson back at quarterback, and they are another team where they disappointed in a lot of regards last season, and Watson specifically. He didn't look great. He missed basically a whole season, then got traded to the Browns, was suspended, missed 10 games, came back and didn't look great. The end of that season, first season with Cleveland, and then last year, he still wasn't looking, terrific. He was moving well, but then he hurt his shoulder, kind of battled through that. So, he's a guy that everyone's kind of down on, but he is still. Look it up quick. He is still he's 28 years old, turns 29 in September. For quarterbacks, that's still pretty young for these high level quarterbacks. And he's got a great coach, Kevin Stefanski, is a very good coach and play caller. So having him there, the Browns passing game is going to be intriguing. They brought in Jerry Jeudy, who they traded with the Broncos to get him and quickly gave him a 3-year, $50 million contract. And previously, they traded for Elijah Moore, who I think is a very talented player. You've got those guys plus Amari Cooper and David Njoku. And I don't think Nick Chubb will be the Nick Chubb that we know, at least not for the first half at least of the season. Even if he's back, just that knee injury he suffered last year was so gruesome. It's hard to imagine, that type of elite game-changing type player that he used to be, being back on the field in September, October. So, yeah, the Browns passing game is one that I think there's a lot of potential for profit there, and I am going to take Jalen Polk as my 7th receiver. Speaking of projections and whatnot, the Patriots are projected for the least points in the NFL, 282.5 per the projections that Hilo was discussing in his training session last week. He also had some discourse on Twitter about it. I won't get into the Cardinals stuff here. I will get into that on my Tuesday training session, but I have some thoughts there. But the Patriots, of course, at the bottom of the league, but that gives them a lot of room to outperform expectations as well. So for this roster, and I'm actually going to take another Patriot here. So I'm going to take Hunter Henry as my second tight end. So with those two picks in the 14th and 15th, took Jalen Polk and Hunter Henry. So very good chance that these two, Jalen Polk was drafted with the 37th pick in the NFL draft. I believe the Patriots traded up to select him. So Polk was played for the University of Washington, and Rome Odunze, who was selected 9th overall, kind of overshadowed him, but a very good player, very talented in his own right, and a lot of opportunity here for the Patriots receiving core for who can step up there. I took Hunter Henry as my second tight end, added him to Trey McBride, who was my first tight end. And so the Patriots are a team that there's a lot of opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and throw Drake May in my queue, try to target him with one of these next picks here. But one of our Discord, when I threw it out to everyone, one of the things that somebody asked for about was, and this was Pete G again, late round rookies who can make an impact. So you look at once we get to the 14th round here, we are looking at Polk. You also had Jermaine Burton, who with the Bengals is a third round pick, could potentially see an impact with if T. Higgins moves on. Roman Wilson out of Michigan was selected by the Steelers. Of course, the Steelers lost Deontay Johnson. So, those are some guys. We've also got a couple of, there's three rookies right at the top of my there's a few rookies we can talk about here. Drake May, obviously, hyped up in the draft, selected very high. We have Bucky Irving, running back for the Bucks. Now, he's behind Rashad White, who had a good season last year, but also was not the most efficient player. So it wouldn't be shocking for Irving to carve out a role for himself. Drake May got sniped there. All right. Guess we'll have to adjust course here. What do we have for quarterback? All right, I'm going to wait at quarterback. And I'm going to go ahead and take Irving since we're talking about him already. But yeah, uh, Luke McCaffrey here, Tyrone Tracy Jr., who was a fifth-round pick for the Giants. But you look at this team; they lost Saquon Barkley. They have Tracy and they have Devin Singletary, and Eric Gray are their top. The second-year running back are the top options for the Giants. So with such little competition there, that becomes a situation where maybe Tyrone Tracy isn't a guy that you are looking at long term. Maybe he isn't, in 2 or 3 years from now, he's not doing much, but volume is everything at the running back position. And he's a guy who has a chance to see a lot of it. But I'm going to pass on him here. Luke McCaffrey, obviously, in the mix there as well. I'm going to add Rashawn Johnson, and just pair him up. I'm making this bet on the Bears on this roster, so I'm going to pair him up with Swift. And you look at their draft costs. Swift in the seventh round on this roster goes in the eighth sometimes. I just got Rashawn Johnson in the 17th round, so if this situation that I am discussing comes to fruition, where they could end up being similar to the Lions, they're a very good offense, and they have multiple backs, somewhat heavily involved. Both could drastically outproduce where they're being drafted, and cumulatively, they could be very valuable. So, yeah, looking at those guys, Luke McCaffrey, I started to talk about him. So I already have on this roster Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin. McCaffrey is a guy who, former quarterback, I believe, converted to wide receiver. So a lot of the projection type things for dynasty or for long term, what players will look like, look at when they broke out, when they started having success at their position. McCaffrey, his situation with how his career has gone kind of throws a wrench in that, makes it a little bit harder to properly evaluate him. So when you think of it from that angle, it becomes a little easier to understand. And quarterbacks are really flying off the board here. May have put myself in a tough spot. Gardner Minshew went away, so we could be stuck here. Um, but anyways, McCaffrey is a guy who, after those top two, Dotson and McLaurin, There's a lot of opportunity, and he's a guy who, a late round rookie, could get himself on the field. Also, Javon Baker went with pick number 2 of the 18th round. He was a 4th round pick by the Patriots. Talked before about Jalen Polk's opportunity, and there's certainly, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that uh, something similar happens uh, with Javon Baker, or he just outplays Polk. So, um, you know, again, talent is important. Opportunity sometimes can outweigh that too. So, reminder to, when you get in these late portions of the draft, think about uh, those players who, one, have the talent, and two, potentially have the opportunity to get a big, have a big season, or have a huge role, that gives them the opportunities to make the most of it. I actually talk a little bit this week in our Tuesday training session about some guys who potentially would fill that role, and breaking down the last 2 seasons on drafters, some, just a variety of guys who uh, outperformed, really, what they were expected to do. I'm going to take Noah Fant as my third tight end here. Um, I had to take Aiden O'Connell there, who apparently he'll be in a camp battle with Gardner Minshew. I was going to take both of them, uh, pair him with Devontae Adams, but we're just going to have to roll and hope that my Bears bet on this roster works out. So we shall see. Um, but yeah, keep an eye on some of these rookies who could, you know, you're not going to see Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua type of situations in the 19th, 20th rounds very often. Last year was kind of such a fluke outlier that guys drafted that late were that good, where they're top 5 at their positions, at running back and receiver. So, not something you can rely on every year, but certainly, you want to think about who are the players that would fill that role. And obviously, rookies kind of have the highest variance. And late in drafts, we want to chase more variance. We want to chase guys who have a better chance to outperform what they're doing. And the last thing that was brought up by Maximus, who shout out Maximus, during the season, I do a show every Thursday on FanDuel. We build lineups specifically on FanDuel. Maximus comes on, and I help him build for the tournaments he's playing on there. That's the site that I have had a lot of success on FanDuel over the years. And there's a lot of DraftKings specific stuff during the season. So he and I do a show during the NFL season, building each week. So his question was specifically to Derrick Henry, just the way he's been drafting him. Doesn't really have any of them. And it's ironic because then today I saw a couple things on Twitter, kind of Jim Harbaugh, or is it John Harbaugh? I always get him confused. Yeah, John Harbaugh, talking up the Derrick Henry and just how they're going to use him and stuff. So, he is a guy that, he's, the bottom line is, he is a 30-year-old quarterback, or yeah, running back. So when you think of it from the standpoint of what is likeliest to happen. Now, if Derrick Henry is fully himself and he plays, 14 games even at full strength, and this Ravens offense has a great season, then obviously he becomes kind of a smash pick. But just from a process standpoint, it's really hard for me. 30-year-old running back. The Ravens historically have used multiple running backs. Going to go ahead and click out of this. Took Sam Howell there at the end. So we'll see how that works out with that quarterback room of Sam Howell, Aiden O'Connell, and Caleb Williams. But yeah, just to touch on Henry before we finish up, he's a very talented player, and he might be one that makes me pay for fading him altogether. But that's kind of a chance I'm willing to take. Being drafted in the he's like the 24th or 25th pick in DraftKings ADP. A little bit later on drafters, and about the mid third round on Underdog. So certainly a guy who on a weekly, I would say on Underdog, I have a lot more interest in him. Just his weekly spike potential, and the fact that he's not really a pass catcher, and the Ravens haven't really been a team that targets running backs in the passing game either. So I think he's most interesting on Underdog, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm proven correct there, or D. Hember, Derrick Henry goes ahead and sticks it to me once again, as he has done multiple times throughout my DFS career. So with that said, I'll get you guys out of here. Quick and hopefully painless wake and snake this week. Touch on a few different situations. Like I said, there's not a ton going on in terms of news. Next week, we'll have Billy back, and we'll dive into a lot of things that we've heard. And so we've got some teams doing mini camps this week. So I'm sure we will get a little bit of a spike in, the fun highlight catches that you see, and different things that coaches quotes that'll jack up a player's ADP or knock them down a bunch. And we'll be able to decipher it and wade through everything. Once again, check us out, oneweekseason.com, Bestball Plus 2024. If you are not already playing on Drafters, drafters.com, highly recommend it. Your most plus EV place to play best ball for my money. Also, if you are new there, use code OWS on your first deposit for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Once again, my name is Mike Johnson, mjohnson86. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again next week. And for our Best Ball Plus 2024 subscribers, you will see me again tomorrow. Hit us up on Twitter and Discord if you got any questions. Otherwise, best of luck, and we'll see you in the draft rooms.